In this presentation, I want to review and emphasize the why of the method and why I suggest trimming an individual structure, or better stated, why did I create the step in the method. What is a method? A method is a system or a way of doing something. Simple enough. Regarding a trim, does it mean that the trim is the same for every hoof? Absolutely not. The hoof is a conglomeration of structures that work in concert with one another, as detailed by the suspension theory of hoof dynamics. The HPT method addresses these individual structures in turn, working to achieve balance of the structure to its foundation. The HPT method could not have been developed without first creating the suspension theory of hoof dynamics, and subsequently the HPT model. A person can be taught how to use the tools of a sculptor, but without understanding the medium, be it stone, wood, or clay, and not having a model to reference, the person will never become a skilled artisan. A middle school teacher said it best: mixing and matching hoof care methodologies is like shotgun teaching. Using bits and pieces of proven educational models destroys their integrity, and at best creates confusion amongst the students. At its worst, results in great harm. Commitment. Commitment is the key to success. Having defined stimulus, it is only logical that I detail how stimulus is received and distributed throughout the foot. I often say that the method is applied with the stride phases in mind. As a result, the method first addresses those structures that deal with the forces created during impact. After all, the stride sees the structures of the caudal foot engaged first. The Michael Jackson moonwalk is not a good representation of the stride. It's heel to toe that best describes hoof placement throughout the stride. So, if the heel is the first structure engaged in the stride, why does this slide showcase the frog? Well, think of the heel as the tiller and the frog spine as the rudder. Heel placement engages the frog via the frog stay, in turn altering the conformation of the proximal frog. The frog spine defines the proximal conformation of the frog. The position of the frog spine alters the conformation of the digital cushion, which is the conduit for the distribution of force in the caudal foot. This slide illustrates how all structures must work in concert with one another to achieve performance. If you like, you can replace the word performance with health. Okay, so this slide is a review, but remember, repetition is the mother of skill. Grasping the concept that balancing to a definable plane of reference is the key to achieving consistent, repeatable balance. Referencing structures that are closest to their point of origin is what makes using the axis plane so reliable. I recommend concentrating your focus on those structures located within the confines of a 2-inch circle with the foot's axis at its center. The foundations for the structures within this circle are P3, foundation for the primary sole, and the digital cushion, foundation for the frog. You may recall that it is the relationship that P3 and the sensitive frog hold to one another that defines the live sole plane. By referencing the hoof's structures within this circle, you'll be able to envision a representation of the foot's live sole plane, defined as the axis plane by the method. The axis plane is a virtual representation of the foot's live sole plane. Within the HPT method, there are 3 planes of reference: the axis plane, the heel plane, and the toe plane. In the previous slide, I reviewed the primary plane of reference, the axis plane, which is a virtual plane. In this slide, you see a representation of the heel plane, a physical plane of reference. Why is achieving balance in the heel so important? Well, achieving balance of the heels is critical, and that if you don't have a heel plane that is parallel to and balanced to the axis plane, it is impossible to achieve balance of the hoof to that of the foot. The foundation for the angle of the bar, or the heels, are the ungular cartilage appendages. Position of the angle of the bar determines the effectiveness of the ungular cartilages to protect the coffin joint from excessive torque. Also, as noted on the slide, heel position is also responsible for initiating hemodynamic response, or circulation. Hemodynamics and hemodynamic response play a major role in protection, by means of energy dissipation or dampening. Just remember, balance is timing, and when it comes to hemodynamic response, timing is everything. In the method, I do not focus on the bars themselves, but rather on the frog stay as a structure. The bars are simply the hoof wall of the frog stay. This slide helps focus our attention on the frog stay as a structure. There are two foundations to the frog stay. Forward of the access sees P3 as the foundation, and caudal of the access sees the ungular cartilage as the foundation. In review, it is the conformation and the property of a structure's tissue that determines its function. With the frog stay, it is the conformation and property of its foundations that determine its function. I believe this slide does a very good job of illustrating the function of the quarters. See, the quarters have a foundation of both cartilage and bone, as illustrated in the upper left-hand illustration. The palmar process of P3 is the bony portion of the quarters foundation. It's the distal dorsal portion of the foundation, while the ungular cartilage represents the remainder of the foundation, or the proximal palmar portion of the foundation. It is the conformation of the intersection of the two foundations that dictate the health and performance a quarter exhibits. So in review, it is the conformation of the ungular cartilages and palmar process that are in part responsible for the position of P3 within the internal arch apparatus. Now, both the hoof capsule and the ungular cartilage of the quarters should possess a high degree of elastic potential. Achieving symmetry of the hoof capsule of the quarters to that of the quarters foundations assures that the quarters, working in concert with the frog stay and the ungular cartilage appendages, will manage the forces created by the stride to aid the horse in utilizing these energies most efficiently. What is the function of the toe? Energy utilization, right? Well, if that is true, then how does one justify reducing its effectiveness by dubbing, by squaring, or by shortening it excessively? Under the guise of relieving tension on the deep flexor tendon? The foundation of the toe, P3, always presents the correct conformation of the toe for each given foot. The toe consists of the hoof wall matrix, the golden line, and that area of the sole forward of the tip of P3. The toe is balanced by establishing a toe plane, which should be parallel to the heel plane. The toe plane is balanced to all four dimensions: dorsal to palmar, medial to lateral, distal to proximal, and yaw, or rotation. It is balanced to its foundation and to the access plane. As stated on this slide, the toe aids the horse in utilizing the energies created by the stride, it supports hemodynamic response, and it stabilizes its own foundation. I can still recall when I first started using the phrase, trimming to the fifth dimension. I was teaching a class in upstate New York in 2002, and up until that point had only included 4 dimensions in teaching the HPT method. It was actually a student that pointed out that time was a dimension. And after all, I had been teaching all along that it takes time for the horse to heal. A common question that I get, how long before I can ride? Or how long will it take to? You can fill in the blank. Applied equine podiatry is about aiding the horse in its attempts to heal. As a podiatrist, I only spend maybe an hour or 2 with each horse every 4 weeks. Is that sufficient time to aid that horse in healing? No, not really. So how can I, as a podiatrist, implement the 5th dimension of time? Educate. Use the tools you are given and work with the horse owner. Teach them how to implement the tools needed. Exercises, treatments, pads, whatever it takes within the 5th dimension of time to achieve the goals you and they set.